Intelligence Studio. Do subscribe and like the video.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to dive headfirst into a story that sounds like it was ripped straight from the pages of The Onion, but I assure you this is all too real. Russia, in a move that can only be described as audacious, slapped Google with a fine so astronomically large it would make even Scrooge McDuck blush. We're talking 20 decillion, a number so big it makes a trillion look like a rounding error. Now you might be wondering what in the world could Google have possibly done to warrant such a mind-boggling penalty. Well, buckle up, because we're about to unpack this doozy of a situation. It all started with YouTube, Google's video-sharing behemoth, taking down Russian state media channels in response to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. This decision, while seemingly straightforward on the surface, ignited a firestorm of controversy, pitting the tech giant against the Kremlin in a battle over censorship, freedom of speech, and the increasingly blurry lines between the digital and geopolitical realms. So, grab your calculators and a stiff drink, because things are about to get interesting. The year is 2022, and the world watches in horror as Russia launches a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Amidst the chaos and bloodshed, a different kind of battle is brewing in the digital sphere. YouTube, in an unprecedented move, decides to block several Russian state-controlled media channels, including the likes of RT and Sputnik. These channels, known for their pro-Kremlin stance and often accused of spreading disinformation, found themselves on the receiving end of YouTube's content moderation policies. The platform justified its actions by citing its rules against content that incites violence or denies, minimizes or trivializes well-documented violent events. The decision to block these channels was not taken lightly. YouTube, like other social media giants, has long grappled with the challenge of curbing the spread of misinformation and harmful content on its platform. The Russia-Ukraine conflict, however, brought this issue into sharp focus, forcing YouTube to take a stand and confront the thorny question of how to moderate content in times of war and geopolitical turmoil. YouTube's decision to block Russian state media channels was not without precedent. The platform has a long-standing policy against content that incites violence or denies, minimizes or trivializes well-documented violent events. In this particular case, YouTube argued that the content being disseminated by these channels violated these policies. They pointed to instances of Russian state media outlets downplaying the atrocities committed in Ukraine, spreading false narratives about the conflict, and engaging in what they deemed to be harmful propaganda. YouTube's move was part of a broader effort by tech companies to combat the spread of misinformation and propaganda in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Facebook, Twitter and other platforms also took steps to limit the reach of Russian state media, labeling their content and restricting their ability to monetize. This coordinated response from the tech industry highlighted the growing concern over the role of social media in amplifying propaganda and shaping public opinion during times of conflict. The Kremlin, unsurprisingly, did not take kindly to YouTube's actions, viewing them as a blatant act of censorship and an infringement on freedom of speech. Russian officials accused the platform of bias against Russian media outlets and of trying to silence dissenting voices. They argued that YouTube's decision was politically motivated and aimed at controlling the narrative surrounding the conflict in Ukraine. This clash between YouTube and the Kremlin highlights the ongoing debate over the role of tech companies in moderating online content. On the one hand, there's a growing recognition of the need to combat the spread of misinformation, hate speech, and other harmful content on social media. On the other hand, there are concerns about censorship, freedom of speech, and the potential for tech giants to abuse their power. This debate is complex and multifaceted, with no easy answers. It raises fundamental questions about the balance between free expression and the responsibility to protect users from harm. And it's a debate that is only going to intensify as technology continues to evolve and play an increasingly central role in our lives. Section 5. Grasping the immensity, the $20 Decillion Fine. Now let's talk about the elephant, or rather, the incomprehensibly large Decillion elephant in the room. Russia's response to YouTube's actions was not just limited to angry rhetoric. They decided to hit Google where it hurts: their wallets. The Russian government slapped Google with a fine of 20 decillion rubles. For those of you who don't have a calculator handy that can handle that many digits, let me break it down for you. A decillion is a 1 followed by 33 zeros. To put that into perspective, if you were to stack 20 decillion bills on top of each other, you'd create a tower that could reach the Andromeda galaxy and back over 500 times. This fine is so astronomically large, so utterly mind-boggling, that it's difficult to even comprehend its scale. It's like trying to explain the concept of infinity to a goldfish. It's just too big, too vast, too utterly ludicrous. Section 6. A drop in the ocean, comparing the fine to global wealth. To truly grasp the absurdity of this 20 decillion fine, we need to do a little comparing and contrasting. Let's start with the global GDP, which is the total value of all goods and services produced worldwide in a year. In 2023, the global GDP was estimated to be around $105 trillion. That's a hefty sum. But hold on to your hats, folks, because Russia's fine on Google is almost 200 billion times larger than the entire global GDP. It's like fining someone the weight of the earth in grains of sand for jaywalking. It's utterly disproportionate and frankly just plain silly. Section 7. Doubling down the threat of escalating penalties. But wait, there's more. As if a $20 decillion fine wasn't enough, the Russian government decided to up the ante. They announced that if YouTube failed to comply with their demands and reinstate the blocked Russian state media channels, the fine would be doubled. That's right, folks, they threatened to double down on a number that's already larger than the estimated number of atoms in the observable universe. It's like trying to extinguish a house fire with a fire hose filled with gasoline. It's counterproductive, nonsensical, and just plain ridiculous. Section 8. A symbolic gesture, the Kremlin's response. Now, let's be realistic for a moment. It's highly unlikely that Google will ever actually pay this fine. In fact, it's safe to say that they'll probably treat this whole situation with the seriousness it deserves, which is to say, not very much. The Kremlin knows this, of course. So why go through the trouble of slapping Google with a fine so astronomically large that it's practically meaningless? Well, it's all about symbolism. This fine is a way for the Kremlin to flex its muscles, to show the world that they won't back down from a fight, even if that fight is against a tech giant like Google. It's a way for them to send a message, to make a statement, even if that statement is utterly absurd and completely unenforceable. Section 9. The wider implications tech giants caught in the crossfire. This whole saga between Google and the Kremlin is just one example of a much larger trend. As technology continues to evolve and play an increasingly central role in our lives, tech companies are finding themselves caught in the crossfire of geopolitical conflicts. Governments around the world are grappling with how to regulate these powerful entities, and the lines between censorship, content moderation, and national security are becoming increasingly blurred. This is a complex and evolving issue with no easy answers. It raises fundamental questions about the role of technology in society, the balance between free expression and the responsibility to protect users from harm, and the future of the Internet as we know it. Section 10. A global economic earthquake, the potential fallout. The potential economic impact of a fine this size, even if purely symbolic, is difficult to overstate. It sends a chilling message to global businesses operating within Russia and sets a dangerous precedent for international trade and relations. The move could further isolate Russia from the global economy, deter foreign investment, and create significant uncertainty in the tech sector. The ripple effects of such an action could be felt far beyond Google, potentially impacting international trade agreements and the delicate balance of global economic power. This situation underscores the growing tension between governments and tech giants, highlighting the need for clear international regulations and cooperation to navigate the complexities of the digital age.
and do subscribe to the channel.